Sometimes painting can lead you in unexpected directions. I may have a particular subject in mind, only to have a new spark of inspiration lead me somewhere completely different. I may even have the entire painting planned out and even started the painting, just to have this new idea whisk me away on a completely new trajectory. That's exactly what happened with this painting. Hello and welcome, my name is Jason, and today we're going to be creating this painting using gouache. Along the way, I'll share some of my process, some stories, and some fun facts. So, let's get started. Like I mentioned in the intro, the inspiration for this painting came in the middle of working on another piece. I had been mulling that one over for a few days now, trying out different designs and compositions, without much success. It was supposed to be a portrait with surreal elements, but no matter how much I adjusted the design, nothing quite felt right. It was one of those paintings where I tried to replicate things I'd seen other artists do in my own style, but I just didn't have the same creative drive I usually feel. It lacked real inspiration. There's nothing quite like that random idea that pops into my head, the one that I need to bring to life in a painting. I can't explain where it comes from, which makes it frustrating when I'm trying to force that kind of spark. Most of the time though, these ideas arrive when I'm casually looking through other artists' work, illustrations, and even photography. This idea came to me while I was looking through some photographs I've taken of butterflies over the years. As I was flipping through them, a video of a butterfly I took stood out. It sparked a whole what-if scenario in my head that I couldn't shake. I knew I had to bring this idea to life on paper. The video was of a chestnut tiger butterfly from a trip to Japan a couple years ago. It was this brilliant blue butterfly that almost looks like a monarch in design, but with a beautiful reddish-brown hue on its hind wings. It was flying around in the breeze from flower to flower, with its wings flapping like sails in the wind. With this image in my mind, I started to imagine a sailboat with sails that looked like this butterfly's wings, and the story for this image started to come to life. Of course, with sails as magical as this sailboat would be flying high above the ground. While this scene was already full of imagery, I wanted to include a little more story. From there, I played with ideas of adding people to the boat before arriving on a design where a person was fishing off the side. I included this because I thought the imagery of a person fishing off the side of a flying boat would be amusing, and might pose the question of what exactly he's fishing for way up in the sky. After finishing the sketch, I brought the panel over to the easel to start painting. Starting with the background as usual, I began blocking in the colors for the sky with my biggest brush. Gouache definitely has a particular aesthetic, and is one that I highly enjoy. It works similar to acrylic and watercolor, making it one of my personal favorite mediums. I particularly like how I can re-wet and rework areas when needed, and that the paint won't dry up on the brush, making it unusable if I'm not careful. I also enjoy the dry time as opposed to oil paints, which can allow me to work on a piece for much longer in one sitting, versus having to wait days for layers to dry in oil paints before I can come back for another layer. While I definitely enjoy the quicker dry time, it can also have its drawbacks. The quicker dry time makes it harder to blend larger areas, making it really hard to get softly blended backgrounds. My initial intentions for the background was to have the scene fully in the clouds. Using several cloud references, I settled on a design that I enjoyed. However, upon execution, it was another story. Since gouache has such a hard time blending in larger areas, it became a real challenge to get the softness in the clouds that I wanted. I finished the background but was overall unhappy. I ended up having to take a break from this piece, feeling like I had made an unfixable error. Unlike with acrylic, gouache only allows for a few layers of paint before it re-wets and picks up the layers underneath. Since I had used pretty thick paint for the background, I was worried I had ruined it because I most likely wouldn't have room to paint over it. Coming back to it, I noticed some things about what I had painted that sparked my interest. The thin dark blobs in the middle of the right side almost looked like little islands off in the distance, while the larger dark form on the left looked like the peak of some kind of mountain. Refreshed by my break and inspired by the random shapes I saw in the clouds, I set off to make some corrections. Lightly dampening the area with a wet brush, I wiped away some of the paint layers, being careful not to ruin the paper by scrubbing too hard. With the background layers thinned out, I got to work creating the background that I had imagined out of the clouds. I began by accentuating the island forms using a reference photo I took of the Puget Sound from a mountain peak to capture the high altitude perspective accurately. From there I moved on to the mountain in the background, working from several online references. I was careful to desaturate the colors to maintain the sense of distance and atmospheric depth. Looking at what I had created, I felt genuinely grateful that I stepped away and took a break. Just like how I mentioned earlier, I never would have imagined this painting taking such a new direction if I hadn't followed my instincts. Giving myself the space to shift course made all the difference. With the background complete, it was time for the subject. I began by painting the wings of the sails, starting with the bright blue pattern. Interestingly, the cool colors often seen in butterfly wings aren't a result of pigmentation, but of something called structural coloration. This means the surface of the wings is made up of microscopic structures that reflect specific wavelengths of light, creating a brilliant iridescent blue effect. While warm colors in butterflies, and in nature more broadly, are typically created by pigments, the cool tones like blues and purples come from the incredibly fine structures that interfere with the transmission of light, reflecting back only certain colors. To me, this species reminds me of the monarch butterfly, but with a light blue coloration. While their wing patterns aren't exactly the same, their speckled bodies and the strong presence of a single dominant color evokes the same iconic feel. Interestingly, the similarities go beyond appearance. Their host plants are both varieties of milkweed. Just like the western monarchs that migrate from North to Central America, chestnut tiger butterflies, though found throughout much of Eastern Asia, are known for their long-distance migrations. They are commonly observed traveling between Japan and Taiwan, covering distances of over 2,000 kilometers. Next, I moved on to the sailboat. While there's nothing particularly extraordinary about its design, it had the right shape and structure for what I was aiming for. The perspective worked well with the background, allowing the distant water and islands to remain visible without throwing anything off visually. I decided to paint the bottom of the boat red, a nod to a maritime tradition known as anti-fouling. This practice helps prevent barnacles and other marine life from accumulating on the hull. Historically, shipbuilders used copper sheets since copper is a natural biocide. These days, the same effect is often achieved through copper-based paints, which are typically red. While modern ships can still come in a variety of colors, I thought this little detail was interesting enough to include in this painting. Finally, I moved on to the fisherman, who is precariously perched off the side of the boat. It was a simple design, but I thought it added an extra bit of story and life to the painting. And with the last bits of detail on the boat, I called this painting complete. I had such a fun time with this painting. I'm glad that I followed the inspiration rather than forcing myself to push through a painting I was overall unsatisfied with. I'm also happy I stepped away, coming back to the background with fresh eyes to make it look so much better. Overall, I'm really happy with this painting, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.